Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. Joe here, along with Julia, Matthew, Kobe from the Podium Finish, and Joshua. Everyone's here because we got a lot of racing to talk about. And a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Colin, Michelle, Mark, and Robin, for keeping us on the air. You too can invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Link in the video description, or buy me a coffee, one-time contribution, or buy a cup of coffee or a favorite drink or your favorite on-air personality right here on the Grid Network. We'll start with Julia. Joshua, MotoGP, Twin Ring Motegi, the Japanese Grand Prix. Incredibly wet conditions we had, and many call rain the great equalizer. And what we saw? Marc Marquez is on the pole for the first time in 1,071 days, 2019 at this track. But we may have, and they're calling for dry conditions tomorrow, not the wet conditions like we had today. Julia, starting with you, can Marc Marquez contend for the win in dry conditions?
Knowing Marc Marquez, I cannot say he can't, because this would be an understatement, because we've seen this man doing such an amazing things that I don't think I'm just, sure and able to say that he can't. Even though he thinks he cannot win if it's gonna be if the race is gonna be in the dry conditions. For sure, as always, he's been amazing in wet. And we've seen today pole position for the first time since the last Japanese Grand Prix in 2019. It's been it's been 3 years. Thinking this is crazy, because I remember waking up at 8 a.m. to see this race and the qualifying, and now it's been 3 years. But I honestly think it's not gonna be as flawless maybe as it would be if it would be raining. Like today, this qualifying, he was really amazing. Considering that a few months ago his right arm was turned around for 30 degrees. It is just a crazy thought that this is his second Grand Prix after such a surgery. I think he is able to win, or at least get a podium if it's going to be trying. But of course, this is going to be much harder than in a rain, or at least on a wet down track. We have to see also about the tire. What tires the rider is going to choose, because this may be also crucial. But I'm honestly so curious to see how this race is gonna work, especially in the dry conditions. Even though I would like to see a little race on damp, because we haven't seen it in a few races. But we get to see that on the front row, we have kind of a rain specialist. At least the guys who knows how to ride in the rain, I kind of like it. We have Mark, we have Johan, we have Brad Binder, who we remember Austrian Grand Prix last year who finished the race on slicks in the full rain. Then we have Maverick, who's also not bad in the rain, and we see Fabio Benin. We know he does not like riding in the rain. So if the race is gonna be dry, we can see a little crazy mix in the grid, especially that these guys who prefer dry conditions are gonna grab front. We have Bagnaia, who really would like to go forward, as he's really starting from a low position from himself. I was quite surprised to see him that low. But going back to the topic, I think Mark can win, but it's gonna be much harder for him. But I genuinely don't think, even though he's been saying that he doesn't think he can do it, that he's not ready for it, I don't think he's gonna let it go and just stop fighting for this win just because there is no rain.
Yeah, he's going to have that little hungry red eye moment as well that we know Marc Marquez has, and this is a bit more back in tune for him as well. Last time out at Aragon as well, he didn't get the race he wanted, but I think he proved to everybody as well the start he made at turn 1, that was showing, okay, Marc Marquez is still in contention. He can still have some great maneuvers. So I think Marc is definitely a racer still. He's still got that pace. Yet he didn't just take pole position, he completely dominated qualifying as well. He was so much faster than everybody else around him as well. He was the most consistent in qualifying, always setting faster lap times than the lap time before. Zarco and Binder, who lined up second and third, were also doing that, but they didn't get their last lap times in due to a yellow flag. So they both never got a last lap time. Marc did and got back up there as well and just confirmed his pole position. But wet conditions as well. It's less G-force on that arm as well. It's less pressure in wet conditions because you're not going as fast as well. It's more of a lift and coast through the corners instead of having to wrestle the throttle control of the bike and lifting it up as well. I am slightly worried whether or not Marc Marquez can last the distance tomorrow, because this track as well, it's an abrasive track as well. It's the one that always gets to the chest of the drivers as well. The first sector as well, it's just a 2 hairpins back to back, and it opens up massively. And by the time the track opens up, the front tire is a little bit cold. So that's why we saw quite a lot of them dropping it this morning in practice too, in the mixed conditions before the rain properly fell. So there is a doubt that in my mind that Marc Marquez can do it, but I'm in complete agreement with Julia as well that if anybody can win the race with a condition like that, it's Marc Marquez. He is going to be pretty much unstoppable tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to it because we've got such a mixed up grid thanks to not having a practice 3 going straight into qualifying, and we already had a mixed up weekend anyway because of the freight delay as well. This was known months ago. We had to reduce the Friday running, so we only had 1 practice session across the board. Moto3, Moto2 remained the same, but MotoGP increased up to 1 hour and 15 minutes. Then on Saturday morning, practice 2 was in wet conditions, so nobody could improve their time. That meant the qualifying running order for Q1 and Q2 went on free practice 1 times in the only dry running we've had. They're going to have a 20-minute warm-up session tomorrow morning on a completely green track. They're only going to have 2 sessions of running, both of which on green tracks, to try and work out their race data for the race itself. We are going to be in for a completely crazy situation. And it's what Japan always does. We always get a format change here because the rain is always a factor. So we're going to see yet another crazy race, and I can't wait for it. I think it's worth waking up at ungodly hours as well to watch the racing. Just don't ask me that in Australia when it's 4 a.m. in the morning in the UK.
Early morning for everyone. For us here in the west coast of the United States, 11 p.m., so staying up a little bit later to watch the race. But overall, I think the excitement for this race, especially with the big news of Marc Marquez, as we see Marc Marquez is back, and then Dimas. Happy to see Marc Marquez on the pole. I think a lot of folks are going to be really tuning into this race to see what happens with Marc Marquez, and we thank Dimas and all our viewers. Encourage everyone, comment in the chat room. We'd love to share your questions and opinions on the air. And you all been bringing up an interesting front row with Marquez, Zarco, and Brad Binder. The second row, we got Vinales, Martin, and Aleix Espargaro. Then the third row, Jack Miller, the first Ducati factory rider, Oliveira and Quartararo, the points leader, and then finally Marini, Pol Espargaro, and Pecco Bagnaia, 12th place. We know the Ducatis generally have the straight line speed. We know Quartararo, he's wrestling that Yamaha towards the front. And then you're going to have Oliveira, the KTMs up there with Brad Binder. You got the 2 Ducatis with Zarco and Martin. How chaotic, Joshua, will this field be with the different conditions and the point contenders spread out? They don't want to have a poor race like what Quartararo had last race weekend.
I'm actually really worried about lap 1 because we always see a couple of riders go down in the first sector as well. It's that type of track. You're going into turn 1, cold brakes, cold tires as well. You're into pack racing and you turn 1, it's a double right-hander. Then you go back to a double left again as well. Then the track opens up with 5 and 6 under the bridge as well. And then you're flat out for quite a lot on the lap. So it's always a tricky opening lap. You've got to get in a rhythm quite quickly. You've got to get high up the grid in the first sector. Then in the second sector, you need to start making moves before you get back into the third and fourth sectors, which cram everybody back down again. So for Quartararo, he was having a horrible qualifying. He couldn't get a clean run, couldn't get the bike the way he wanted to. He was slipping and sliding around as well. He was running off at turn 1 quite a bit as well. He was not happy with the Yamaha setup in the wet weather. He wasn't happy in free practice 2 either, to be fair. So he's going to prefer a dry race tomorrow, which is what the weather forecast is looking like. 24 degrees going into 25 degrees centigrade, that is, until the race starts tomorrow. So that's great news. It's going to be definitely a dry race. That's going to help Bagnaia. It's going to help Quartararo, both of those who had the bad qualifying due to the track conditions. Don't forget, just 10 points separate them now. The best of them, correct me if I'm wrong, is Aleix Espargaro with a high grid slot as well. So Aleix actually stands to gain points to close back in. But the Japanese Grand Prix doing what it always does with a close title fight, just completely changing everything. Personally, I think Brad Binder could be a race winner tomorrow as well. Been most consistent throughout the weekend in both the wet and dry running, and seems to be the only one who can get the bike working at this Motegi circuit.
Well, I definitely agree with everything what Josh said. About Enea Bastianini, I'm really curious what happened to him today exactly. Because I honestly did not expect him to fall in these conditions right away and to ruin his qualifying in Q1, because he's mostly known for him being able to put everything in Q1, go straight to Q2, and then even get pole position. So tomorrow may be a little crazy for him, especially in the back, just like Josh said, that from the last races, we've seen many riders fall in the sector win, and I don't think that Motegi is going to be an exception. I think we'll see a crash in the first few corners when the guys, especially the guys in the second part that they're going to fight. Maybe even in the front, but it's hard to say. Definitely, the fact of these conditions are going to be crucial, because we have our favorites and kind of thinking who may win in the wet. But then when I'm thinking about the dry, we have totally different options for the win, for the podium, even for the top 10 sometimes. Just like Josh said, Brad Binder may be the one who can pull it off in both types of conditions. But it's also hard to predict what's going to happen, because as we know, this is racing. Many crazy things can happen during this Grand Prix, especially that this is Japan. And this is so good to be back in overseas racing, especially in Japan, because this is a great track. But honestly, I'm really curious what Enea and especially Bagnaia are going to do, because Bagnaia is fighting for the championship. He's kept so many points in the last few races. As we talked, I think in the summer, maybe it was Silverstone or maybe it was Austria. I don't remember well. Or even Ilya Asen, we've been saying about the comments saying how the journalists can say that Bagnaia is a title contender when he has 50 points lost to another place. And boom, it's been few races and he's already in the better shape than Fabio and Aleix. He's got so many points that if he can pull it up this harder Grand Prix for him, he can become world champion. So this is going to be crucial for him. Maybe not to go on the podium, not to win, but to not lose many points. And as said, he doesn't have a chance anymore. So I think he's a little good with his fate and what happened. But this doesn't mean that he's not gonna try to put it up in the front. And we know that from the last year, that he is really good at going for the back positions to the front, even to the podium, like Misano last year. So it might happen, but definitely I think we're gonna see some crazy racing. Unfortunately, I think we're gonna see some crashes, but I'm really excited to see that as we are back in Japan. I don't know, I think it's gonna depend on the position, the conditions, the weather. And I think it is really worth to wake up. In my case, at 8 a.m.
Gonna be really something else this first lap when you got Marquez up in the front, the points contender all spread out, and you bring up a good point. Pecco Bagnaia not in the front row, got to charge his way towards the front in that first lap. Gonna be a very exciting, interesting first lap. And a couple of comments in the chat room. Sorry, with Demas, do you know about Nicholas Latifi leaving F1? Williams, yes, definitely. We'll be reporting on that on Grid tonight. Next Wednesday, Kobe will be hosting the show. And then from Ben, wow, Marc Marquez, just checking in. Impressed by Marc Marquez and what he's doing. Definitely encourage everyone, keep sharing your comments, and especially share your pick of winners if you're unable to continue joining us, especially if you think Marc Marquez might do it. He leads all riders with 3 wins at this circuit, including 2019, which was the last time we raced here before the pandemic. So there's a bunch of riders that have never raced at this facility before, including Bastianini, who you were talking about, Julia. Had that rough Q1 crash, 15th place. You mentioned he could go up towards the front. He's good at conserving those tires. This is going to be a green track with a 20-minute warm-up session. So tire wear could be something else. Overall, do you feel confident to say that Bastianini will be finishing ahead of the top 3 riders in the points, which will be, of course, Bagnaia, Quartararo, and Alexius?
I think Bastianini could get up there quite quickly. He's got the bike to do so, hasn't he? As well, that's for certain. In dry, it is a factory Ducati bike as well, and as Julia's pointed out several points in the year already as well, they've got like 1,000 machines on the grid as well. They dominate the championship. So yeah, he's going to have a little bit of an interesting race as well, climbing up from 15th. And as Julia said as well when she was talking about her post as well, he had a struggle getting out of qualifying 1, and he was punching the front of the bike as I demonstrate by knocking my laptop. He was punching the front aero screen of the bike as well. Just he could not believe that he was out in Q1 as well. But what I said in commentary as well, and you'll hear in the watch along tomorrow as well, Q1 went out in insane conditions that I thought would have been red flag. In fact, I say it several times, they're going to throw the red flag because it was still bucketing it down. The standing water was everywhere as well. It drained brilliantly for the end of Q2, but Q1 was a nightmare. It was more like it was Potluck who was going through, and the 2 Prima Pramacs went through with Zarco and Martin because they had the best ride height device that could cope with the water. So they went through. But why didn't Bastianini go through? Well, because he had problems with traffic several times as well. He was going for a fast lap, then there was traffic. Darren Binder went down once, caused a yellow flag, he lost lap time. So he's got pace, he's going to fight back. And I think we are honestly going to be seeing tomorrow the top 4 in the championship just leapfrog up the field as well. We're going to have about 4 different Grand Prix to watch tomorrow. Top 5, then 5 to 10, then 15 to 20, then 20 backwards as well. We're going to have 4 or 5 different races. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be fantastic. I accidentally already kind of answered all these questions because I genuinely think we may see Enea make it to the front, maybe not to the top 3 because this is going to be, like Josh said, a different race. I think from the beginning, the top 5 is going to be maybe top 6, going to be in another place than the rest. But I think he's going to fight. I genuinely believe that he's gonna make it into top 10 at least. But like George said, we're gonna see a little Grand Prix, not a Grand Prix as always, because now in MotoGP we see a little less overtaking from the backs because of the area. But let's take a look at the last places on the grid. We have Kyle Crutchlow, who's not doing really bad at his new Yamaha. Of course, Darren Binder crashed, but we assume maybe you remember Darren Binder in the damp conditions in the Asian track. It was Mandalika. He finished in top 10 or started from I think it was 20th on the grid. So this is all possible. And we have Taka Nakagami, who is, of course, is hard, but he's still riding, which is really, I have a big respect for him for that because he just wants to ride in front of his home crowd. And I think this is going to be an extra motivator for him to try to at least to gain some places. So he's going to definitely fight for it. I genuinely think we're gonna see an amazing Grand Prix, and it's gonna be amazing for the Japanese fans who are finally back. I don't know if you've seen the Japanese fans already with their helmets, with their amazing just
Love
equipment.
them.
Yeah, and there was, I don't know if you've seen that, but Taka Nakagami shared it on his Instagram. It was a guy with a dog riding on a scooter on the track, and this dog has glasses, and this guy had Taka's t-shirt, and they were just driving around, and this was crazy. But this is Japan, and that's why I'm also happy to be back in Japan, because this is one of the best tracks, first of all, the fans, and for the facilities, and for popularity of MotoGP.
I completely agree with you. I love Japan. It is always one of the best races of the year across Formula One and MotoGP. The fans are so passionate as well, and you can see it as well. There's a different feel to the coverage you watch as well, because you hear things in your ears, especially recently, because I've got now the track audio completely in my ears. You can hear the fans cheering, you can hear them all talking as well. They're so respectful as well. There's no booing or anything. It's brilliant, and I'm really, really happy that in 3 weeks' time from today, so 2 weeks as well, we're in Japan again for Formula One at Suzuka. So it's just everything's coming back normally. And also, I love it because I don't know if any of you lot do it as well, but I always like having a meal that is relevant to the F1 race we're watching as well. So I'm really looking forward to having a bit of sushi, but also some really great noodles as well. There's some really great spicy noodles as well that I got there as well, with some wonderful sauce as well. I can't wait for that as well. And I'm definitely looking forward to the return of China next year for the Chinese takeaway night.
I'm thinking of ideas. There's a great Japanese restaurant down the road. I'm going to probably do that because it's going to be later in the evening. Bit of a late dinner, but I can make that work. Now, we know, speaking about, filling our stomachs with food, one rider, stomach is still healing up. Fabio Quartararo, Yamaha, it's been a rough few weeks. And seeing him with all the bandages on his stomach, it's like, boy, that is something else to go through what you went through with that zipper coming undone and crashing with Marc Marquez. This morning, though, the race reported from Simon Patterson, Yamaha hired Dr. Tom O'Kane from Suzuki. Quartararo, he's been carrying Yamaha all season long. Franco Morbidelli, 26 points so far this entire season, and he's 19th in the standings. Julia, with the addition of Dr. Tom O'Kane, is this a step in the right direction for 2023 for Yamaha?
I think it is the right step into the very right direction, because they really need someone new. They need someone with a fresh look, with the experience, like from Suzuki. Even though Suzuki is leaving, of course, they're the champions from 2020, and they know what they're doing. And he's a really good specialist. So I think this is a step in the very right direction, and he may be one of the keys to make Yamahas better, because just like you said, now Fabio Quartararo is dragging Yamaha on his back literally all the way from the first race of the season. He's the only one who can do anything with this bike. It is kind of a reminder of situation of Marc Marquez, who is the only one, even though he's right after the surgery. I mean, few months, but he's still not, I don't think, fully recovered with the muscles. After turning his bone by 30 degrees, he's still the only one who can ride this Honda, even though it is not a Honda he knew from his past years. Is different, but he's still the only one who can ride it. It's kind of like with Fabio. He makes a difference in Yamaha, and he's the only one who can make a difference. And if Yamaha doesn't want to end up like Honda, they really need to do everything to help their situation. Even like, for example, hiring the Dr. Tom O'Kane. That's why I think that every step to make this situation for Yamaha better is good, especially that they are losing a satellite team. Even though you can say that this year the SR wasn't very useful, but still having a satellite team is a lot better than not having one. And they are losing it for Aprilia, who's now on the top next to Ducati. So I think this is a right step into the direction, because if Fabio is going to win a championship and still winning races and be the star they need to help him because he cannot drag Yamaha on his back forever. It's been like with Marquez that there were years that he'd been saying to Honda, this year I won for you. Now you need to help me because this bike is not really rideable. I did it alone, but you need to help me. And I think this is something Fabio has to say to Yamaha. Hey, I can do it now. But if you're not gonna, help this, if you're not gonna solve this issue, I won't be able to do it anymore. And Yamaha may really fall down the order like the other Japanese manufacturers. So I think that every step is good, but we'll see what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah, completely agree as well. And there's a little bit of a pun here, but do take it. He has been carrying on his back, and last time I carried on his stomach as well. And you know what they say about armies, they march on their stomachs. I think Quartararo literally took it to the whole new meaning last time out as well. Yamaha, I think, made a wrong decision bringing Franco Morbidelli on, because Morbidelli was never really doing that good anyway when the Petronas bikes were out there as well. He was always a bit hit and miss, and ever since he's come on board with the factory, he has been miss. But as you said, Julia, as well, this is because Quartararo can ride that bike and it sets up for him as well. I'm hoping for 2023 that they now make a bike that both of them can race as well, because last season it was set up for Quartararo and for Vinales. Vinales won the season opener in Qatar, and then Quartararo went on a domination run again. So that's going to be looking very good as well coming up as well. I just saw Julia's message as well coming up in the chat there. But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting and definitely a step in the right direction for 2023 to have Dr. Tomo Kane, because Suzuki out the two were the last Japanese manufacturer to win both the Riders and Constructors Championship. They did the double in 2020. Ducati won last year's Teams and Constructors Championship. They've won this year's Constructors Championship as well. The teams are still up for grabs at the moment, but that can be wrapped up here by Ducati as well. But Julia's right. Aprilia have come in and have completely wiped the floor with Yamaha as well. So they need a bike that two riders can run with. And if we're sticking with Morbidelli for 2023, then you've got to really have some work, because last time out, Kyle Crutchlow got more points than Franco Morbidelli, and that's not on. Absolutely not on at all.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that I completely agree with Josh on Franco Morbidelli's case. I don't think he's been brought up to the factory team when he was still injured. And I honestly now, seeing all this performance, I don't think it was a good idea, because we see how he's underperforming comparing to Fabio. And of course, Yamaha's bike is not helping him because Fabio is the only one who can ride it. But Franco is, unfortunately, even though the last few races he was doing a little better, he's still really underperforming. And this is really sad to see, because he wasn't very special in the Petronas, but he was good. And even though the 2020 was a crazy season with Fabio not being able to deal with all the psychological pressure and losing many places in the championship, and Franco was second, he still was second. So he had something, which I think it was a little ruin after that knee injury. And I think he's feeling a little pressure by being in the factory team and not being able to perform. But I genuinely hope that Yamaha can do something with this bike, and maybe this is the chance that Franco Morbidelli needs, and maybe even Yamaha needs, because the more rider they're being able to ride a bike and give them more feedback, then theirs is better. Just like Honda, I think, and now we see Honda in superbikes growing, and this is because they brought two new riders who could tell them something new from the other manufacturers, what they've learned in MotoGP, and they brought some new energy, and they were the ones who can ride it, because when Alvaro Bautista was in superbikes, he could not do anything, kind of like Andrea Dovizioso after coming back to Yamaha. And then the two new guys came in, and now today also Iker Lecuona from Honda was on pole position in Barcelona. For the first time since 2011, Honda was both on pole position in MotoGP and World Superbikes. This is something. So I honestly think Yamaha needs to new persons, just like Dr. Tomo Kane. But if Franco's not gonna be able to perform, maybe Yamaha also needs someone new. Maybe even Toprak Resgatiolo. Maybe he'll be able to do something with it also, because he's quite a strong personality and he's not gonna accept having the bike that is made for Fabio.
Really interesting points, Julia. And of course, MotoGP, Japanese Grand Prix is coming up. But of course, before we let Julia and Joshua go, we have to come to one of the more challenging aspects of our programs. Pick a winner. Taking a look at the standings, so you can see a lot of folks have been participating in Pick a Winner. And of course, if you're outside the top 10, 4 bonus points. Well, that'll change to 5 bonus points in October. That'll be the last bonus point increase. So we're going to start with Julia. When it comes to the MotoGP race, who are you picking to win this race?
I see Joshua laughing at me because I'm going first with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to go first.
Oh my god, this is so tough because I've been saying for the whole show, it really depends if it's gonna rain or not. So this is gonna be a disaster. But considering that Brad Binder was the one who could perform kind of well, also in the dry conditions, I'm gonna risk and say with Brad Binder. I'm probably not gonna be right, but let's play Vabank.
You took my pick. I was going to go Brad Binder. I was saying earlier, I think he could actually win the race. Marc Marquez, there's a big question around his arm pump issues as well. If that arm is still fully fit, can he go the distance? I don't think he can. I'm really hopeful he can, but I think Brad Binder. I'm going with Brad Binder as well to win tomorrow, and that's my pick a winner. That's what I'm saying. I hope we're both right, Julia. Otherwise, we might need new jobs next season if we keep getting these wrong.
Pick a winner has been really challenging all year long. It's crazy. Formula E had the highest percentage of most correct guesses. Would have never thought that, especially since we had the Wheel of Destiny. But Julia, Joshua, thank you so much for your time. Definitely go out there, enjoy some Japanese food. Matthew, Kobe. Next up is Texas. Does that mean we're going to have to find some good Texas barbecue for the NASCAR race?
I don't know about the Texas barbecue, Joe, but the round of 12 is definitely kicking off at Texas Motor Speedway for the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 500. Then we have 2 wildcard races, Talladega and the Charlotte Roval, a 1.5 mile oval, 500 miles of racing in the Lone Star State this weekend. Starting with you, Matthew, could this race be a welcome break for the playoff drivers who struggled in the first round and help them build some momentum?
Absolutely, and I feel like it will be a beneficial thing to everyone, the remaining 12, because I was looking at a lot of stats before the show and during the show. And during the All-Star race, the last time we were at Texas Motor Speedway, especially in these next-gen cars, every single playoff driver currently still in the playoffs was at the All-Star race. So it was very interesting. But then another interesting point I found, going back to your question about guys who struggled, the guys who had the lowest points come in were like Cindric, Suarez, and Logano didn't have really that many points heading into or through the previous 3 races, right? And if you look at the All-Star race results, Cindric finished 3rd, Logano finished 4th, and Suarez finished 5th at the All-Star race in these next-gen cars at Texas. So I think it definitely is going to be a good wake-up call for opportunity like past champion like Logano, past Xfinity champion like Cindric, to really build this momentum into what could be a win that they really need, because I mean these playoffs have been so unpredictable. We've seen 3 drivers so far who have not won in the regular season win in the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. It's a fresh air because Kyle Larson last season won the first 3 races of the playoffs. So, yes, to answer your question, I think this will help out. I think it will definitely help out drivers like Logano and Cindric are 2 that I have in the back of my mind. These Penske drivers, also with Ryan Blaney, didn't have that great of a first round. He feels like, I believe he was 9th out of the playoff drivers or 9th overall with the amount of points he scored. So I think the Penske Fords will have a great momentum. And then he's retaining his pit crew for this week because they repealed the suspension for the loose tire, whatever happened. So it's going to be an interesting race, but what happens in Texas, we're going to see.
Great points. And as you mentioned, the appeal for Blaney and the loose tire in effect. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Penske does. I think overall, especially for the teams that have had some of the bad luck in this first round of 12, round of 16, they come into this round of 12 looking for a clean slate. And I feel Texas Motor Speedway, it's going to be challenging when it comes to the racing product on the track, the way this racetrack is configured. But I don't anticipate what we saw in Kansas with multiple caution flags. We're not having Bristol, which is going to be what we anticipate typical Bristol. And we're not at the Lady in Black Darlington, the track too tough to tame. Texas Motor Speedway, if you have a good setup, you have a lot of control in this race to just stay up front. You know there's going to be a couple stage cautions. I wouldn't be surprised if we have a caution-free stage in this race. So for the playoff drivers, this is a welcome break to build momentum, reset after a difficult round of 16, and go out there, get your playoff run going to try to advance into Championship A, because you want to have a good race here. I'll almost say you almost have to win here, because you don't want to enter the next race in a bad spot, which is Talladega.
Yeah, Joe, it's going to be really important for these drivers to have a solid race at Texas Motor Speedway, because as I mentioned, next 2 rounds, Talladega, Charlotte Roval, anything can happen there. 2 wild cards, but who knows? We could see a really crazy day in the Lone Star State, and Texas might end up being a wild card, especially on those restarts, trying to get whatever you can get. We could see some playoff drivers get caught up in a wreck or something like that, kind of like an All-Star race when Ross Chastain went flying in the air, a crash that was actually kind of weird. We compared it to like an open wheel crash, like an Indy car flying over the back of another one. That was just so strange. So we could certainly see some playoff drivers run into trouble. And for some of those playoff drivers who didn't necessarily have the best round of 16, this is a great way for them to reset and start to build some momentum so they can make a deep run in the playoffs and get into that next round of 8. And the last race that Texas mentioned, All-Star race, Ryan Blaney won it, but it was overshadowed by the window net controversy and throwing the caution flag on the final lap coming to the checkers, putting the future of the All-Star race up in the air. But this time, longer race, 334 laps, so longer green flag runs. However, we've seen tires become an issue at some tracks. Oh, and oh boy, Texas Motor Speedway. This is one track where you absolutely do not want to blow a tire. Because you blow a tire here, it's going to hurt, especially in these next-gen cars in which drivers have been talking about all these hard hits. So I would not want to blow a tire at this particular track. Also, we know the turns at Texas have different banking, 1 and 2 flatter than 3 and 4. And Joe, you mentioned Darlington being the track too tough to tame. Texas Motor Speedway, how about we call that the track too tough to pass? Because once things get spread out, passing becomes more difficult. Is this an additional headache for teams to navigate?
Yes, it is, just because, as you mentioned, it's too tough to pass. So what's going to happen? Well, take a look at the tires. We're going to have the same tires that we used at Kansas this year. Kansas, we saw that third stage go caution free, but we did see a couple drivers, namely Tyler Reddick, blow a tire. So if you're the crew chief, you're going to want to have a tire air pressure set where you're going to be making up spots, positions. But you're going to have to compromise one of the turns. This is turn 1 and 2 where you got a flatter banking, or it's going to be 3 and 4 where you're going to have more banking. You can carry more speed, but there's going to be much more load on that tire. It's really going to be fascinating to see what these crew chiefs are going to try to do, because at the end, if you're going to play conservative and just make sure your tire does not blow, you might be losing positions left and right on those restarts once the tires are cooler, because everyone else is going to have lower air pressure. Long run, you may not be too nervous about having a flat tire, a blown tire. But at the end of the day, if you come up short in the points and it was because you were too conservative, you're going to be kicking yourself thinking, well, what if we gone half a pound lower? Maybe we could have picked up some more positions. We've seen these playoffs be determined by just 1 point who advances, who's eliminated. I feel, like you said, Kobe, this is going to be a track too tough to pass, but also for the crew chiefs, too tough to set up, because this is going to be a huge challenge. And whoever gets it right, boy, they earned it, especially if they end up in victory lane.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, especially looking back to the race at Bristol, we saw all those tires go flat. I'm concerned about the same thing at Texas Motor Speedway happening this weekend. Hopefully it doesn't become an issue, but for some reason this year we've seen tires, just pop out of nowhere at just random tracks at random times. And if I'm a playoff driver, considering all the Goodyear tire issues we've had this year, or the team's been too aggressive with the tire pressure, however you want to say it, that's certainly a concern that would be at the back of my mind, because sometimes some things are out of your control, and I guess what that's just the mystery of what could happen in all these NASCAR races. So that's something we'll certainly be keeping an eye on to see if we're going to have any more tire issues, and hopefully tires won't be dominating the conversation this weekend, whether they're flat or loose. And none of the 12 drivers still in the playoffs have won a race since Watkins Glen. Nobody besides maybe Chase Elliott can point their way into a somewhat comfortable position after Texas, with Talladega looming next weekend, and a win is going to be the only way to enter Talladega stress-free. Matthew, which playoff drivers have the best shot at winning in Texas?
I mean, Kobe, it's kind of hard to pick just one, so I'm going to go over little points for a bunch of them. Like Kyle Larson, which is funny, we were talking backstage about the one. Kyle Larson dominated this race last year at Texas. I think he led 255 laps, I believe. Him and William Byron. William Byron's another driver who I think can do very well, second in points right now. But Kyle Larson said, I would like them to demolish this place and start over from scratch. I just want to point that out. I think it's very funny that a lot of the drivers, especially one of the best wheelmen in the entire world of motorsport, does not like this speedway, despite how great he is at this speedway. But I think all of them can really do good. Like Ryan Blaney, guy who has not won this race at Texas, the All-Star race in the next-gen car. Denny Hamlin finished runner-up, could have easily won if they disqualified Ryan Blaney for the window net situation. Christopher Bell's done really well here. He's probably the hottest driver on the grid right now. Joey Logano's done well here. Cindric can do well, like the All-Star race. Suarez. I mean, I could start naming every single driver here, Cody, to say what playoff drivers have the best chance. But looking at it, I really think it would be someone like Denny Hamlin, someone like Christopher Bell, William Byron, and I would say Kyle Larson are the four that probably have the best chance, solely because of how they performed in the first round of the playoffs. But you never know. Like, we could see Truex win this race. We could see, if you still count Blaney as a non-winner because he did win the All-Star race, we could see Blaney. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. might come out of nowhere. That might be more realistic at Texas. Or not Texas, sorry, Talladega. Too many T names. But I guess you get what I'm trying to say here is just, I think anyone can really get it done, anywhere from Suarez and Cindric on the bottom of the grid to, like, Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. Oh, I'm going to start naming all 12 guys, so I got to cut me off there. But, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you think most of the 12 drivers still in the playoffs have a shot at winning. I think you certainly have to look at Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and I think those are probably going to be two of the favorites when we get to our pick a winner segment. And also I think the Toyotas could be strong as well. No, Brandon Jones won the pole for Xfinity race earlier today, and you mentioned Christopher Bell riding a hot streak. I think he could finally capitalize on that hot streak and finally get into victory lane. There's just so many different playoff drivers who could potentially win here. So I see why you're almost naming all 12 of them, because it's honestly just so hard to pick. And considering the parity we've seen this year, anything is possible. And speaking of parity, the past four winners, Chris Buescher Christopher Buescher at Bristol, Bubba Wallace at Kansas, Eric Jones at Darlington, and Austin Dillon at Daytona all got their first win of the 2022 season. As you mentioned, Martin Truex Jr., he'd also love to extend that streak to 5 consecutive races with first-time winners in 2022. If Martin Truex Jr. or any non-playoff driver win at Texas, how chaotic would the playoff picture be entering Talladega with nobody locked in?
Oh, man. Like you said, Chase Elliott might be the only person to point his way in. But still, if he doesn't have that huge of a lead, he could have something go wrong early on in Talladega, get no points in the stages or the finish, and then he's in trouble at the Roval. He doesn't want to enter the Roval again for a second year in a row, needing to have a good race, when last year we all remember what happened between him and Kevin Harvick. Everyone else in between, this is the last thing you want. Everyone on points, nobody locked in, going into Talladega. You're in the pack. You can't really sit in the back because then if you're sitting in the back for most of the race, you're going to miss out on the stage points. 20 points maximum available. You could go for those stage points, but then you could get caught up in the crash and then you miss out on the final points at the end of the third stage, the final stage, which could go up more than 20 points easily and then put yourself in a better spot. Talladega is almost just as much of a wild card race. I think it will be the biggest wild card race easily this playoffs. And if you have nobody with a race win in the playoffs entering Talladega, you thought Texas was hard for the strategy, for the crew chief, positioning your car in a good spot. That's going to be really stressful.
Yeah. And I can definitely agree with all those points Joe made there, but I'm going to go the route. I really think this will be the race we finally see a repeat winner, because I'm still considering Ryan Blaney as a repeat winner because of the All-Star race. But, like, Texas is one of those tracks, like, all these guys who are racing for arguably racing harder than everyone else, right, trying to get into the next round, have all raced here in these cars. So there's a lot of lack of experience in the next-gen car at this track for everyone else in the grid besides the people who made the All-Star race. So that's about, 12, 13 people. And we could see, and those 13 people obviously have not won a race besides Martin Truex Jr. So I think it's going to be a crazy race. It really will. Kind of like what Josh was talking about with MotoGP. I think we're going to see different races in itself during this race. But I still see a playoff driver getting it done. Like I said, the Kobe, I named about 8 or 9 of them still. But the guys who do very well here in the most recent races are all non-playoff drivers. And I think we're going to talk about some of those non-playoff drivers very shortly. But, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see this being the first race of the playoffs where we actually see a playoff driver get the job done. Yeah, I think Martin Truex Jr. can do it. I think Toyota is going to be strong at Texas, and if we're not going to count Ryan Blaney's exhibition, I think Ryan Blaney could finally break through and get to victory lane. But I think we'll certainly see a driver who has won a Cup Series points race this year when at Texas, but if someone who's not currently still in the championship hunt ends up winning, oh boy, Talladega, Charlotte, Roval is going to be crazy the next 2 weeks, and there might be some restless nights because this is like the craziest round in the playoffs when you have 3 totally different tracks and anything can happen. All the parity we're seeing this year, we might see some surprises not advanced to the round of 8. And there's a lot of unpredictability with this playoff system, and the drivers who are out of the playoffs now: Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Kevin Harvick, no longer racing for a championship, but they're still going to be going for wins to finish the year strong. Will any of them be a potential spoiler this weekend? And which drivers are your next 4 out of the playoffs?
And I think absolutely, and this is why. So let's go into the statistics. One thing I love to bring on the show is statistics. So if you're looking at the driver averages for recent races here at Texas from about 2019, so that's about 5 races. The drivers who are first in average finish, second, third, and fifth for active drivers with the best finishes, including wins: Kyle Busch, who's not in the playoffs, Kevin Harvick, who's not in the playoffs, Tyler Reddick, who's not in the playoffs, and Austin Dillon, who's also not in the playoffs. All of them coincidentally got out in the first round. So I think absolutely one of them can pull it off. I mean, Austin Dillon's won here, Kyle Busch has won here, Kevin Harvick's won here, Tyler Reddick sure as heck can win here. Tyler Reddick, I feel like, can win anywhere too. So to answer your question, I think absolutely one of these guys can spoil. You have, out of the entire grid of these 36 drivers that are active currently for this race, 4 of them are in the top 5 for best average finisher. Christopher Bell's the other one, but we've proven that Christopher Bell can win pretty much anywhere too. And then my 4 drivers out, it's going to look a lot similar to what I said in the first round, unfortunately, and then clearly I was not right by that. I don't think Suarez can make it to the next round. I don't think Briscoe makes it. I don't think Cindric's going to make it, even though I think Cindric's going to have a strong showing here. It's tough. Like, I don't know if I want to say Alex Bowman, because Alex Bowman's been pretty well, but Joey Logano has not been doing well these playoffs either. I don't know if I want to take out the former champion, though. So I'm going to stick with Bowman for now. So I'm going to say Bowman, Briscoe, Suarez, and Cindric are going to be the next 4 out. And I'm pretty sure I said all of them but Cindric in the first round when we had this discussion about 3 weeks ago.
It's going to be interesting. I think I'll start with my 4 that'll be eliminated because I got Bowman, I got Briscoe. I'm going to go with Ross Chastain. I think he's not going to get it done, and he's going to be out because we know at the Roval, we saw what Kevin Harvick did last year to Chase Elliott. I would not be surprised if Denny Hamlin or somebody else gets to Ross Chastain's ruin his day. And then when it comes to that 4th and final one, because I named 3, I'm torn between Suarez and Cindric. Just because the 2 of them, I feel the Roval is sort of their hope. Talladega, if Cindric doesn't get to win there, I think he's going to be in trouble. So I think I'm going to put Cindric as my 4th one to be eliminated. When it comes to those drivers eliminating the playoffs, Kyle Busch will love nothing more than to go out there, steal the headline, steal the show, and get a win, proving, hey, I still got it, I could still win, and just make life miserable for everyone else in the playoffs if he could get wins. And then, of course, can you imagine how big of a statement that would be if Richard Childress Racing could get Tyler Reddick into victory lane? Like, hey, yeah, we're out of the playoffs, but we're still winning. Can you imagine how strong this team's going to be? And will it be interesting to see where Tyler Reddick ends up in 2023? Is he still with RCR or somewhere else? So I think those 2 are really motivated to get a win, and they're going to go, I think, extra hard to get that win. Kevin Harvick, depending on where he qualifies, that'll be a good indicator if he could go out there and get the win. But it just seems that's hit or miss. They're either contending for the wins or they're solidly in the top 10 or sometimes even a little further back. And then Austin Dillon, we know he won here before by staying out using strategy. I don't see that working this year. I think just that team just does not. They just seem to be missing something where they can't be consistently towards the front. But if we do have some sort of crazy race, he did it in Daytona. I would not be surprised if he could do it again.
Yes, and out of those drivers who were eliminated after the round of 16, I only see 2 of them actually being realistic contenders this weekend. As for Kyle Busch, I'm actually gonna say no to him. It seems like the 18 teams, still not running up to form, still running into a lot of problems, and 2 blown engines in the last 3 races. That's not good at all. So I unfortunately I just see Kyle Busch's time with Joe Gibbs racing the 18, ending on a sour note. I think he can potentially get a win before the end of the year, but right now it doesn't seem like all things are sunshine and daisies right now in paradise at Joe Gibbs Racing. But the 2 drivers I think who can potentially play spoiler, Tyler Reddick and Kevin Harvick. Texas has been a really good track for Kevin Harvick in the past, and Tyler Reddick actually right now in practice. Watching practice, Tyler Reddick's one of the fastest cars up at the top of the board. So I think Reddick can potentially still win. And as for my next 4 drivers out, I'm gonna say Alex Bowman, Chase Briscoe, and then both Trackhouse cars, Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain. Like Joe was saying, I think Ross Chastain could potentially run into issues possibly at the Roval. And anything is possible at Texas. Could have a good day. Could go flying over a car again like he did last time. Then Talladega, you have the chances of the big one. Get caught up in that. You ruin your day. Charlotte Roval, he could get pushed off the track or something. Could get intimidated by Denny Hamlin, same way Chase Elliott did to Harvick last year, and Harvick ended up missing turn 1 completely and crashing into what used to be known as the Tums heartburn turn. And I know a lot of viewers probably gonna be surprised. I actually didn't put the rookie Austin Cindric in my next 4 out, and the reason why I think Texas is a real good track for Team Penske. I could see Austin Cindric having a solid points day, and then going to Talladega. He's been really good on the super speedway, so I could see Austin Cindric in contention to win at Talladega. And then we all know he's a really great road racer. So I also think that Charlotte Roval could be a great race for him as well. So I think out of all the rounds we have in the playoffs, I think the round of 12 really suits Austin Cindric. I know it'd be really surprising to see a Cup Series rookie make it to the round of 8.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that too, Kobe. And I want to point something out. So on Instagram, my It's a Dinger, I do a NASCAR pick'em, kind of like what you guys do for Pick a Winner, and I pick 4 drivers and average them out. And I want to point out when I did for Texas, I had Ryan Blaney, but I also had Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, and Kyle Larson. And the problem was 3 of them DNF'd, and I had one of my worst average finishes ever despite not having a full grid. So that's why I wanted to point out that I really feel like this race can be totally unpredictable. And with these next-gen cars, I feel like every single day with these cars is unpredictable. But I just wanted to point that out. So that's why I'm going to be a little anxious when it comes to pick a winner.
Going to be anxious because now it is that time. Pick a winner. We encourage everyone in the chat room, comment, who do you think is going to win at Texas Motor Speedway? And that's where we're going to start with. Starting with you, Matthew. Texas Motor Speedway, 500 miles. Who do you see taking the checker flag?
Pretty much everyone in the field. I have Penske, definitely. So I'm going to go to Texas Roadhouse tonight, like talking about the food. I'm going to order 12 different items because I think YRB, young Ryan Blaney, gets it done. For real this time. Not for $1 million, but, well, probably more considering the purse. Yes, Ryan Blaney won. Short answer.
For me, I haven't been putting too much stress just because it's going to be such a close race. I'm going to play spoiler. I'm going with Tyler Reddick. Just make a mess when it comes to the playoffs entering Talladega.
And I'm gonna go with the driver who had the strongest round of 16. I think Christopher Bell, that 2018, is gonna get the job done, and he'll be moving on to the round of 8.
Round of 8 for Christopher Bell. That'll be huge for him. He's been really good lately. Kobe, we got to go now with MotoGP, the Japanese Grand Prix. After all this thinking, I'm going to go with the rider that's on the front row, not Marc Marquez. I'm going to go with Brad Binder. He won a dramatic rain race at Austria on slick tires. I think he's got the potential to go out there, surprise everyone with the KTM in dry conditions, and prove he could get it done, stay out of trouble, get the win. Brad Binder is my pick.
I've been critical of him coming back too soon and re-injuring that arm, but Marc Marquez, to do what he did today, I got to give him a hand. That was such an incredible ride, and I think he's going to continue to surprise people. I think he's going to win the Japanese Grand Prix. It'd be great for Honda and what hasn't necessarily been a great year for them. And I think Marc Marquez, he's going to be back on top, and he's going to look to try to rediscover that form in 2023. Watch out for Marc Marquez.
Watch out for Marc Marquez. Tomorrow, Grid Life wrap-up approximately 90 minutes following the conclusion of the NASCAR race. Monday, Grid Encore with Ben Schneider and Brandon. Then Wednesday, Grid Tonight with Kobe. Friday, Women in Motorsports. And then we'll be back again next week. Big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, Colin, the show, Mark, and Robin, for keeping us on the air. Click on the link in the video description to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon or one time through Buy Me a Coffee, buy a cup of coffee for your favorite on-air personality. Also, use public.com if you want to invest in the stock market and use the code GridNet to earn free stocks. Get started and utilize the stock market for your investment portfolio. For Matthew and Kobe, of course, from the Podium Finish, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races. Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GridNet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.